You can't see? You can sit right there. It's a good spot. All right. You guys want your space right here if you want? I'm probably going to stand up to read this book to you guys anyway. I'll show you, don't worry. See, that's what it looks like. All right. Now, there's this. When I was growing up, I remember one of my favorite authors, and her name was Judy Blume. Okay? And Judy has written for us this great book called The Pain and the Great One. Now, who has any brothers or sisters? Raise your hand. You guys have any brothers and sisters? Raise your hand out there, everybody. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but I understand what's going on in this book very, very well. Okay? So here, let me read a little bit about, because what I want you to think about is how Joseph got to Egypt. Okay? Because we heard about a story that happened today, but I want to tell you how he got there and what happened. So we're going to highlight that just a little bit. So let me stand up so you guys can all see, and I'll show you the pages. Okay? My brother is a pain. He won't get out of bed in the morning. Mom has to carry him into the kitchen. He opens his eyes when he smells his cornflakes. Okay, that's what happens there. Smells his cornflakes. Okay? He should get dressed himself. He's 6. He's in first grade, but he's so pokey that Daddy has to help him, or he'd never be ready in time, and he'd miss the bus. He cries if I leave without him. Then Mom gets mad and yells at me, which is another reason why my brother is a pain. Okay? He's got to be first to show Mom his schoolwork. She says, ooh and ah, over all of his pictures, which aren't great at all, but just ordinary first grade stuff. At dinner, he picks at his food. He's not supposed to get dessert if he doesn't eat his meat. But guess what? He always gets it anyway. When he takes a bath, my brother, the pain, powders the whole bathroom and never gets his face clean. Daddy says he's learning to take care of himself. I say he is a big slob. Okay. My brother, the pain, is 2 years younger than I. So how come he gets to stay up as late as I do? Which isn't really late enough for somebody in 3rd grade anyway. I asked Mom and Daddy about that, and they said, you're right, you are older. You should stay up later. So they tucked the pain into bed. I couldn't wait for the fun to begin. I waited and waited and waited. But Daddy and Mom just sat there reading books. Okay. Finally, I shouted, I'm going to bed. We thought you wanted to stay up later, they said. I did. But without the pain, there's nothing to do. Remember that tomorrow, Mother said with a smile. Okay? Now let's see the flip side of this, the great one. Now this is the little brother talking about the sister. My sister thinks she's so great because she's older, which makes Daddy and Mom think she's really smart. But I know the truth. My sister is really mean. Got it? All right. She thinks she's great just because she can play the piano, and you can tell the songs are real ones. But I like my songs better, even if nobody even heard them before. My sister thinks she's so great just because she can work the can opener, which means she gets to feed the cat, which means the cat likes her better than me just because she feeds her. My sister thinks she's so great because Aunt Diana lets her watch the baby and tells her how much the baby likes her. And all the time, the baby is sleeping in my dresser drawer, which Mom has fixed up like a bed for when the baby comes to visit. And I'm not supposed to touch him, even if he's in my drawer and gets changed on my bed. My sister thinks she's so great because she can remember phone numbers when she dials even the wrong person. All right? So these two, they look at each other and they don't see how much they are both loved. Okay? They both think the other one has more attention from mom or dad or is treated in a different way. That was the same thing with Joseph and his brothers. They were really jealous of Joseph because Joseph got all this stuff and didn't have to work in the fields. And so, you know what they did to him? They sold him to some people after they threw him in a pit. Now, let me tell you some advice, okay? Do not sell your family members to the Ishmaelites, okay? Nobody gets sold into slavery, okay? Don't do that. You want to love them. Don't throw them in a pit, okay? Be very, very nice to one another, because even though your parents may treat each one of you differently, they love you the same. And that was the thing that Joseph's brothers couldn't understand. So you know what? They threw him in a pit, and they sold him to some people. Then he had to go serve them, and so he was out in Egypt. Okay? So be nice if you have brothers and sisters. And if you don't, be nice to your friends too, okay? All right. Thanks for coming on up. Appreciate it. Since my microphone seems to be having some issues, I will just talk from up here. But how many times are we all tempted to sell our brothers and sisters to the Ishmaelites, right? Right? I'm not the only one. Yeah, okay, I thought so. Man, that would have been a sweet deal. I even dug the pit, but it just didn't happen. So there's this movie. It's a musical called Singing in the Rain. You're probably familiar with it or you've heard of it. And you know how the beginning starts out. It starts out with Gene Kelly on they're on the red carpet and talking about this new film that they're releasing. And he always talks about how he's done everything up to this step with integrity. With integrity, always. And of course, it's a juxtaposition because all you see every time he talks about these memories is it's not about integrity at all. It's just about advancing. It's about moving from being the stunt man all the way to the top and how he's mistreated along the way a little bit, but it goes back to it, integrity. Lately, we've seen the integrity of the NFL come into question. We've heard about abuse of children and abuse of spouses. Now, that's the funny thing about integrity, is integrity takes a long time to build up. You work hard at people to make the connection between your efforts and your name. Having integrity means people trust what you have to say. Your handshake means a lot, and your words are your bond. Integrity. But here's the funny thing about integrity, is it only takes that little nugget, that little slip up to have people start questioning your integrity. And the NFL has had more than a little slip up. They've had a massive one. And when we think about what the NFL has become, the NFL is very powerful. We also think about what we have done with the players themselves. We have lifted them up on a pedestal. We have made them gods in their own right. And that's why things like this have happened. Because when the consequences that affect pretty much the regular Joe and Jane are not applicable, well, then those deals or shades of what shouldn't be look a little more attractive. Joseph has the same opportunity in our reading from today. As Joseph is deemed in God's favor, it seems to be everything that Joseph touches is golden. everything that Joseph participates in is successful. And so Potiphar sees this and elevates him. And Potiphar's wife also notices this. And so she, time and time again, offers herself to Joseph. And Joseph probably could have had this deal. He could have been with Potiphar's wife and still running everything in the house, and no one would be the wiser. But Joseph he knew in his heart that this was against what God had willed for him, what God has willed for us all. And so Joseph stands tall. He keeps his integrity. But as we are familiar, sometimes to keep integrity, to follow God's will, sometimes that means not such great things will happen. For Joseph, it will be jail, wrongly accused. And here's the kind of funny thing, is Joseph's clothing gets him in trouble twice. The first time, it's his beautiful robe that makes his brothers jealous, especially because it's a long sleeve robe, which means it's not a working man's robe. He won't be toiling in the field with his brothers. And so that beautiful Technicolor dream coat lands him in a pit and then sold off into slavery. And now his garment will be used against him to land him in jail, as his garment is used by Potiphar's wife to accuse him of seduction with an attempted affair. But all the while, Joseph keeps his integrity. And I think that changes the idea about what does it mean to be in the Lord's favor? What does it mean to have God bless you? Does it mean that everything is going to go perfectly? Can't. Because if it was, Joseph never would have gotten beat up by his brothers and thrown in a pit. He never would have been sold into slavery. He never would have had the possibility of being falsely accused. Now, maybe being in the Lord's favor means that God is with you, that God enters into these places with you. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be good, but it means that God will always be there. Now, the question of the NFL with integrity. The sad news is it's not just the NFL's problem. This is widespread. And some of it is supported by all of us when we watch, when we buy tickets, and when we don't raise our voices in anger to say this cannot happen, this cannot be allowed. We are called to stop lifting up people on pedestals. We also need to stop looking for people to fall. We need to have integrity because we can do better. We should do better. So remember in those times, those opportunities when you could cut corners, when you could throw someone else under the bus. Remember this story of Joseph. Joseph who keeps his integrity, full well knowing that God is with us when we will get slapped in the face. God is with us when we will be wrongly accused. God is with us when we will be reviled. Integrity. Because God calls us to do better. Amen.